Hey Beryl, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me back.
Great, great. So Beryl, you are in Houston area servicing buyers and sellers and making difference, such a huge difference in the lives of your clients. You do an awesome job, and I've heard that from your client, even your client that you referred to me to purchase property in this area. So
Thank you.
this journey that you've had in real estate, it's only 5 years that you've been in real estate. How did you start in real estate? Why did you select real estate and where did you come from? So we just want to talk a little bit about your journey to real estate.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks again. Yes, so my journey, I came from the oil and gas industry. I have a background in environmental science and engineering, and I worked in the oil and gas industry for about 14 to 15 years. And then during the end of my corporate America career, I decided to get my real estate license. It was quite challenging because I had a full-time job and I had to figure out how do I get my license without really affecting my full-time job. And so the weekends were so packed with me just learning and trying to take all the classes necessary to get my classes. Because during the daytime, I am at my day job. In the evenings, I'm with my family. So weekends, I'm doing work at home and doing different things. I'm just listening to my classes.
So
So
why
that was how I started.
why real estate though? Why did you select real estate instead of, something else?
Good question. So I would say that whole decision to go into real estate started when I started during my last job. I was having some conversations with some friends, and they had told me about bigger pockets. And so my husband and I love to listen to podcasts. And so we started listening to podcasts on bigger pockets. So thank God for bigger pockets. And we started learning so much. It's like one of those things where I'm driving from a place, I'm going somewhere, and on weekends, whenever we usually listen to audios, I just started listening a lot more to bigger pockets, like how these people doing it. So then we started investing and started investing in real estate, and then just decided that, hey, you know what? Why not just get a real estate license? And then we wanted the flexibility for our family because our kids were getting older, and we just wanted to have that flexibility to be there for them because we understand that raising kids is a ministry. And so for us, we really wanted to pour into our kids. And that was when I decided that, you know what, I wanted to go get my real estate license and see how I can be there for my family.
So you were working full time as an engineer in the oil and gas industry, and then also part time in real estate to start. So how did that transition happen? Like, how long did it take you to be able to go full time into real estate?
Okay, well, that was a very challenging time, I will tell you, because my workload was busy. I was dealing with trade compliance, supporting a business that was global. So, looking at engineering designs and technologies and trade laws to be able to advise different clients globally. So, I was working in multiple time zones. So, you can imagine that my day was packed full. Now, weekends were the times where, the tools I talked about before, City, I would use my weekend. Whenever I have a client, I would schedule weekends to go do showings for those clients. I tell them, oh, on my schedule, you have this time or this time. So it's like Friday evenings, Saturday, or sometimes rarely Sunday evenings. But those are the only times I had to really go show clients at properties. So that's why I started with dealing with the lease clients. So it was quite challenging, but again, with a supportive husband and family, it was working right.
And how did you select a brokerage? Because many agents that start, the big question is, where do I work? Who do I partner with? How did you decide who to partner with?
That's a very good question. And I will tell you, I interviewed several brokerages, several. So the first thing I was looking for was the flexibility. The fact that we were in COVID, a shutdown in the whole country, the whole world pretty much. And I had a full-time job I needed to work with. I wasn't looking for a brokerage that will require me to go into the office because that's not going to work, right? Monday through Friday, I'm in my office. I work working from home on a day job. So it's like looking for a brokerage that had the flexibility to accommodate me going to ask broker question or other team members. Like I said, that was how I found you, right? Just being able to just chat with any agent whatsoever. And EXP Realty just stood out to me. EXP Realty, I felt at the time I joined, were the most appropriate, most ready for that season where everybody was shut down because everything was virtual. It's like I would tell my friends sometimes saying, "Hey, can you imagine you're in a brokerage where I can talk to my broker, but I'm really talking to the avatar, but they're right there, they're live." And I didn't have to show up in any office because my home was my office. So I had a dedicated space in my home where I considered my office. And that was just the best thing ever, having EXP Realty. And again, apart from looking at that, I looked at their compensation. Well, before we go into compensation, the next thing for me, because I used to be a Schlumberger employee, I bled blue for a long time. So I know that they're very big about training. So for me, I was looking for a brokerage where I could get trained and be on top of my game. EXP Realty was so amazing. I remember starting out helping clients and dealing with other agents and realizing that, man, EXP Realty really prepared me to be able to have conversations, handle buyers, handle sellers, understand the documents, the contracts, the amendment. So it was kind of like I just got very involved in listening to recorded trainings which were taking place during the day, which I couldn't attend. So I spent a lot of time after getting my license and selecting EXP, just looking at training documents. So those are some of the things that I wanted to consider. It was the flexibility, the training, and also the compensation. The compensation split in EXP was better than a bunch of the other brokerages that were still offering training and all of that. So a lot of their compensation just didn't match upright with EXP Realty. Again, for me, realizing that EXP going into real estate at that time wasn't like my bread and butter. I had my regular job. I was wanting to focus more on getting the training that I needed at that time. And so right now, it's kind of hard for me to see myself leaving EXP. So when I hear of other agents that have experienced other brokerages and come to EXP, I'm just like, wow. And you can hear their stories.
So when you talk about training, I know that working with buyers and sellers, they're always negotiating. Yeah, right? So do you have a testimony of that? How have you helped a buyer or have helped a seller in negotiating for them to reach that dream, that goal that they were pursuing in a better way than maybe if they had worked with somebody else? What is the test? Do you have a testimony on that?
Yes, yes, of course. This was actually one of my early transactions. I got the lead from someone that was working in a hospital. She closed on a deal. Then she sent me a coworker, and the coworker sent me another person, like a mother. So, but anyways, this particular family, so I helped the mother buy a house, and then she sent me her son. So the son, they're trying to buy a property, him and his wife, and it was an amazing property. It has acreage of land, and it had a beautiful house in it there. The house was listed for $450,000. So we went on their contract. It was during the time where you couldn't negotiate in the price as much, right? Because the sellers were kind of like king at that time because it was in a market where it was a seller's market. So we got on that contract at 450. Very excited about that. Now, this is where the negotiation happened. Sometimes in negotiating transactions for a client, you could negotiate upfront with the great deals, but we need to recognize what market that we're dealing with. If it's a buyer's market, there's so many perks that you can negotiate for your buyer. When you're dealing with the seller's market, then you have to think and be more strategic on how you negotiate, especially if you recognize that the buyer wants that property. So you don't want to lose it, but it's like, how do you balance that out? So this is where you kind of negotiate a price that the buyer is comfortable with, but at the same time, you leave room for the appraisal time, right? If the house does not appraise, then the seller has no other option but to drop the price in a lot of cases when you're dealing with a VA loan or FHA or stuff like that. So I had a client that needed to purchase a house, and when the appraisal came in, we did our inspection, negotiated all the things that needed to be negotiated with the sellers during the option period. When we're now fully into the contract, the appraisal came out $100,000 less than what we offered. $100,000. So now, this is where I get on my knees and I pray and say, God, this client really wants this house. How do we keep this house? How can this seller dealing with a so-called $100,000 loss in what they were considering their property was worth? So this takes a lot of relationship building, me being able to talk with the listing agent, massaging that situation, that relationship so closely, and talking with the appraiser, the agent. I found out that was the agent was related to the seller. So I don't know how she advised her clients. I don't know, but I assume that she did the best she could. The square footage of the property on the listing was higher than what the appraiser measured. So that's why the price per square foot from her listing was more. So when we did the price per square foot at the measured, then that was when we realized it was 100,000 less. It was very challenging, I would tell you. We've had phone calls with the listing agent, with myself, with the appraiser, with the lender, with the buyer, and it was like sometimes a little bit heated, but sometimes it was just more of me talking with the listing agent and just saying, hey, look, how can we get both your seller and my buyer on the closing table happy with each other? My buyer was so gracious to say, you know what? This house appraised for 340, which is $110,000 less, but it's okay. We would add a $10,000 to get it to 150 to 350 so that the difference is just only $100,000. And voila, that was how we got to the closing table. $100,000 less than the asking price. And the
Wow.
deal did not crash. So that was just a miracle from heaven.
Thanks for sharing that. And just because of the training, that also helped with protecting your buyer. Because there are some provisions in a contract that if you had missed, the buyer would have been obligated,
Mhm.
even though it appraised for that much
Yeah.
less. But
Mhm.
filling out your contracts correctly, getting your training right as a new
Mhm.
agent, that really saves, I say save lives, but saves
Yeah.
transaction and it saves a lot of unnecessary heartache.
Yeah, I can tell you that I had a lot of background conversations with the broker as well. And they were just like, wow, you just started real estate and you're dealing with these difficult transactions. But honestly speaking, it took a lot of I call it a dance between multiple parties coming together. Yes, there were some difficult conversations. Yes, it was getting to the point where, my buyers are like, we want this house, but at the same time, the seller was not willing initially. Then it was like annoyance. And then before you know it, everybody's coming back to the table and saying, you know what, let's just get this over with. So my client were like the happiest, I would say. So
That is great. And those type of clients, they stick with you because they
yeah.
saw how you fought with that for them and you fought on their side and you worked
Mhm.
with them, help
Mhm.
them achieve that dream and that goal. So
Yeah.
that's really a great testimony. When you shared it earlier with me, I thought you should share it here, and tell
Mhm.
people about the training. It's not just joining a brokerage, but joining somewhere that gives you the practical boots on the ground training you
Mhm.
need to be successful in helping people achieve their dreams and being successful in your business. So that's absolutely amazing. So Beryl, share your screen with us. I know you have a website somewhere that people can go and connect with you if they're looking for someone in real estate or they're looking to pick your brain some more about what you've shared today or things about the company. Where can they reach you?
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. So I'm going to share a link on actually, it's a blog that I wrote on my website. You can go to betahomes.com and you can feel free to read about my journey to real estate. It took a while for me to just sit down and navigate how to write this. But I'll tell you that my entire experience so far, it's not over yet by the grace of God. It's still growing. I'm still growing in a lot of areas. But at the same time, if you need to reach me, please visit my website. You can go to contact me now and get in touch with me, or you can call me right here or send me a message from my website. But if you want to read some more about my journey, feel free to go on my website and peruse.
It's great. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your time. And we look forward to many, many more good stories and testimonies of greatness and the things that you're doing, helping customers and clients. Cheers to 5 years in real estate this month,
Yay.
and looking forward to seeing how your next 5 years would be.
Amen.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.